I used to think, oh, we don't have enough people coming to our groups and it's a waste. But it's not. Even if you just have 2 or 3 people, they're getting something out of it. It's doing some good, and it's something that if it wasn't there, it would be missed.
Well, welcome to Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland Labrador's first podcast about stuttering. My name is Greg O'Grady, and I am the chair of the Newfoundland Labrador Stuttering Association and a co-host of Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about stuttering, along with my co-hosts.
My name is Katelyn Mayo. I'm a student and an aspiring speech language pathologist, and I'm Greg's co-host for Some Stutter Law podcast.
Some Stutter Law mission is dismantling and rebuilding stuttering. Let's start listening. Some Stutter Law mandate is in the spirit of Newfoundland and Labrador humor, robust and frank interactive discussions. Some Stutter Law podcast aims to rebuild confidence and hope for today's and tomorrow's persons who happen to stutter by dismantling stuttering myths, stigmas, stereotypes, and barriers.
The objectives of Some Stutter Law podcast are supporting, raising awareness, and increasing understanding and acceptance of stuttering, providing people who stutter, their families, professionals, students, and the general public with current information, research, and resources about stuttering, and promoting the NLSA mission of advocacy and support for people who stutter.
Today, Some Stutter Law welcomes Lisa Wilder. Lisa, as a person who stutters, would you share a little bit about yourself to our Some Stutter Law listeners audience?
Sure, I would. Yes, I was born in Ottawa. I moved out to Vancouver in the early 1990 to go to Emily Carr in Vancouver, and I'm now a graphic designer and a writer and an artist. I moved to Toronto in 2000, and I've been here ever since. I've been married about 15 years now, and I recently got a new job, so I'm enjoying that, and I like Toronto, but of course, like everyone, I'm looking forward to the pandemic being at least partly over with. We can hope. All right.
Great, Lisa. Thank you very much for sharing that. Lisa, you're also very involved with the Canadian Stuttering Association, and would you share a little bit about the mandate of the CSA and your role, because you've been involved with the CSA for a number of years now.
Yeah, well, I became involved, I think it was in 2006, and shortly after that, I redid their website, and I've been managing, kind of editing and webmastering the site ever since. And we like to have a lot of different articles on it. And a lot of information for people who stutter, and for moms and dads who are faced with their kids who may stutter, and they want information about it. And so our site has different purposes. And recently we've been trying to expand our support groups, and we of course, so right now they're all over Zoom. We aren't doing any in person, but we want our website to be a kind of hub to know more about our support groups. Now I'll tell you something. We have a new site in the works, and it's been delayed a bit, but we want to have it up maybe next week, and it will have a calendar, and it will have all these support groups and events in Canada related to stuttering, of course, and it will be very handy for people to just go there and see when the next meeting's happening, because of course anyone anywhere can join any of our meetings. They're open to everybody. So and we have meetings all over Canada now.
You know, the Canadian Stuttering Association website is an excellent resource for any person who stutters, any families or allies, and I mean, and for the general public. I often use it as well, Lisa. I really do, and I mean, it's always up to date, has current information, research about stuttering, so it's an excellent outreach for the stuttering
Thank you.
community. So job well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
Lisa, would you like to share a little bit about your stuttering? Like, when did you first notice it, or your parents notice it? Your attitude towards it. You know?
Well, I guess all my life, ever since I began to talk, and my mother, I even think I recall the first time my mother mentioned it, and then I went to speech therapy in Ottawa. I think you went there too, Greg. It was at that time, it was at the ROH, the Royal Ottawa Hospital, and I went there as I think I was only 4 or 5 years old. And I went for almost all my childhood, and I don't have the best of reports to give it. To be honest, it was at that time. I think speech therapy has changed a lot since then. That was a long time ago. But it was just very, very focused on techniques, on repeating, on going over and over techniques, and at that time there was a belief that a child has to overcome their stuttering at an early age, because if they still keep stuttering when they're older, they'll never get rid of it, or that was the belief anyway. So it was very intense, and it didn't do much do much good either. I don't know. I don't really have any reasons other than I don't think it was the right thing for me. I don't think it was the right approach for me as a child. And I just found it very intense and demanding, and it wasn't what I needed in my life at that time.
When did you like stop going to the Royal Ottawa, and like did you take therapy in like in an early adult when you're an earlier adult or
Oh
teen?
yes, I went back as a teen. Well, I think I stopped at age 10 or 11, and then I went back as a teen, and then I stopped, and then I went back as a young adult, kind of off and on, and then I yeah, I went to, when I moved back to Toronto in 2000, I went to this speech and stuttering institute and took an intensive course there. That was the only intensive course I took as a child until about, I guess it was about 5 years ago now. I went to the McGuire program, and that, well, I don't know if you know, you must have heard about that. It's an intensive course for it's a based in Europe. It's for people who stutter, and it's a very intense therapy. And I recommend people try it. It's helped a lot of people. You know, it's like all therapy has helped people, helped some and not others. You know, no therapy is going to help everybody. People are different.
Do you feel, Elisa, that having that exposure to speech therapy has helped you somewhat in terms of your com- com- communication?
Maybe a bit, yeah. I think yeah, I think it has.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that like in terms of on a scale from one being not accepting, 10 being accepting of your stuttering, where would you put yourself? What number in terms of acceptance of your stuttering?
I'd put it at 6.5.
Why 6.5? I haven't heard
Well,
that.
I guess 7 is a bit. I think that I'm still I still holding out hope that I'll I guess in the back of my mind, even though I've accepted it to a great deal, and the people around me do too. And we also live in a more open, I think because of the internet and because people are more open to each other, I think people know about stuttering more, and I think people today are more accepting of other people's differences than they might have been when I was a kid. I mean, I never even met anybody else who stuttered, and I wouldn't have if I hadn't gone to therapy. And there were a lot of people who didn't know, who they'd never heard of stuttering and never met anybody and who stuttered, and they just thought I was they didn't know what was wrong with me, and a lot of teachers even didn't know what to do with me and how to behave, or whether how to behave around me, how to deal with it. A couple did. There were, some were better than others at that, but I think now there's more of an attitude of accepting people in general.
Do you feel, Lisa, like has stuttering, like then and now, like has stuttering held you back any in terms of professionally, personal life? Any thoughts
It
about
might have. I
the
don't think
impact?
it had to. I think if it did, yeah, I would say it did, but I'd also say it didn't have to. I think it's all in your attitude. And it's so easy, especially when you're young, to get in a negative mindset about things and to not get out of that, and it holds you back. It's your mindset and your attitude that are holding you back. And it doesn't have to be that way, but I think that's the way it was for me for a long time.
And how is it now, Lisa? I'm thinking that you're also, go ahead.
No, I have a better attitude now than I ever have in my life.
Katelyn, do you have a few questions for Lisa?
Yeah, of course. I think the main thing that stands out to me in hearing you speak is like kind of emphasizing the importance of awareness in the public, really, for accepting stuttering and all that, and how it's shifted a little bit, but there's still always a need for awareness. And you have experience, you work with the Canadian Stuttering Association and things like that. In your opinion, what do you think is like might be the best way to kind of get that word out there? Should we like be informing teachers or just like what kind of ways do you think awareness could be more effective? I guess I don't know how to word this question well.
Well, I think social media is such a good way to reach a lot of people, and I know you're doing that, and just the podcast that you're doing, and the having a website for people to visit, and just having the information there, and having other people who participate in it. A lot of people who stutter, I think, aren't even involved in anything. They don't want to be involved in it. I didn't for a long time when I was younger. I didn't want to really know other people who stuttered, or to get too involved in it, in reaching out for help that way. And so just reaching out to schools and teachers, and having that information for them on your website. Have them be reach out to teachers associations and to other speech therapists to get them to encourage people who stutter, who they know, to try out a group or a conference, or to get involved somehow.
And one other thing that I was thinking about was there like some sort of driving force or something that made you want to kind of start on that path to acceptance, I guess, or start joining support groups and meeting other people who stutter? Was there something that kind of inspired that, or did it just happen?
Well, it was definitely when I came back, when I came to Toronto in 2000, and I was involved with Toastmasters there, and I saw there was a real need for it, and there were people who were going regularly. Not even a lot of people, just a handful of people who were doing it regularly and coming and they really relied on it. But I used to think, oh, we don't have enough people coming to our groups and it's a waste. But it's not. Even if you just have 2 or 3 people, they're getting something out of it. It's doing some good, and it's something that if it wasn't there, it would be missed. There's also people who just like to, they know it's there and they drop in now and then, but they may not rely on it so much. But I guess I saw, and then there was a conference here in Toronto in 2006, and again, you just saw that there were people who did want to have that resource.
Lisa, I'm not too sure if Katelyn has informed you, but she is an aspiring speech language pathologist. She's going to be starting her studies. Do you have any advice for her as a person who stutters for a speech language pathologist?
Oh, gee. Well, I know. I think that it's different now than it used to be when they just looked at just thought that fluency was the only goal. But of course, there's a whole other realm of people's lives that needs to be addressed. I think, and of course, a speech therapist can't do everything, can't be it all, can't be a best friend to everybody they meet, or a psychologist, but you do need to know, and I'm sure you do know, that the life that a child or a person lives at home, their home life and the relationships they have with other people, the things that are happening in their lives are far more determinant on how they cope with their stuttering than anything a speech pathologist can do. I mean, I'm even a good one, even the best one in the world. What's happening in that person's life? What's happening in their relationships? Do they have relationships where they communicate with other people? Now, as a speech pathologist, you don't have any control over that, over what's happening in someone's personal life, but just addressing that maybe that element is that element there, or is it missing, might determine how you treat that individual, what's happening in their lives. And just you won't know everything or be able to address everything, but if you know for instance, if you know a child's ignored at home and never talks to anybody, that's a different child than a child who has lots of people in his life or her life who are helping them and who they have a regular communication, meaningful communication with. Those are different circumstances. And if you're dealing with a child, you need to talk to the parents and make sure that they are engaging the child in conversation and in talking and in encouraging them to express themselves and listening to them. If it's an adult, they need that element. They need to be talking to people too, even if their speech isn't perfect. And if they don't have those relationships, the way you administer therapy to them might be different. It's such, everybody's different and needs different things, I would say. I don't know if that made sense, but
Oh, it certainly did, Lisa, because you're really touching on the emotional component of stuttering that I think the speech language pathologist needs to address, because it goes beyond just the physical treatment of the stutter to the lower, below the surface of the iceberg. Now, I applaud Katelyn because she informed that Katelyn, you will be doing another degree alongside in counseling.
That's
Am I correct?
the plan, yeah, is after my master's in speech pathology, I would plan to do a master's in counseling psychology.
Yeah.
And kind of
And
apply both.
I feel Katelyn, Lisa, and I think you agree as well, Lisa, that when somebody is going for therapy, you really need to address the emotional component. And I know that that's a huge level of the part of the issue with stuttering, but it really needs to be addressed. What's your thoughts with this, Lisa? The emotional component.
yeah, well, I would agree, and I think that's what I wish had been there when I was a kid and in therapy, because it wasn't there at all. And it was just almost like being in the army and doing all these drills that didn't really, it was just like going through the motions of something, and it didn't really mean anything. But that's not to say that you shouldn't do therapy that you shouldn't ever do therapy exercises or fluency exercises. I mean, of course you should, and I do them myself every day. In the morning I try and do some for 5 or 10 minutes, but it can't be the only thing, unless it's the case. I can also, having said that, I could see an adult who just wanted to, maybe he or she just had a new job and wanted to talk as well as they could, and they go to a therapist and they say, okay, don't waste my time, I just want to get better at speaking without stuttering, and I don't want any other emotional thing or anything or any of that. All I want is to get some fluency training. And if an adult did come and say that, to you, then that's how you would do it. But the thing that happens, I think, with kids is they have a parent who thinks that that's what therapy is, that it's putting your kid in the machine, and he comes out the other end and he's not stuttering anymore. And it doesn't always work that way.
You're right, Lisa, because some adults as well as teenagers, I guess, they may not want to take the full like a treatment program. They just want to learn how to introduce themselves at a meeting, just to really sort of be able to manage their stuttering within a situational context. And I think that's we really have to respect that as well.
Well, the point is everyone's different, and everyone will have their own way of dealing with it, and will want different things from therapy. Some may just say, I just want to be able to handle this emotionally. I want to be able to be more accepting of it, and that would be a whole different thing. But I think most people want both, kind of a combination of both, of fluency and the emotional component.
I'm wondering, Lisa, that like anxiety is often related, as we know, as people who stutter. Anxiety is often related to stuttering, and how do you still experience anxiety?
Yes, yeah, not so much anymore as I used to. I used to be so afraid of talking to. It wasn't even that long ago. I was always wanting to hide my stuttering, and if I could say a couple words to someone without stuttering, I'd be like, okay, now I have to maintain my fluency with them at all times, so I better not say anything. But yeah, anxiety about what other people think of you is a big thing, and wondering what other people are thinking, or what effect you're having on them, or do they hate you because of your stutter, or it's hard for us to really understand that most of the time people don't care.
What advice would you give people who stutter when it comes to anxiety, how to handle it, or?
Well, I guess what I just said is that don't care so much what other people think. And that's hard to do. It's hard to just say, okay, I won't care anymore. But you have to, yeah, it's a process of self-acceptance, and of working on your attitude, about life, about yourself, about how you relate to other people, and it can be a long process, but you have to work on it at your own pace, whatever that is.
Knowing that you're involved with the Canadian Stuttering Association, now do you have any idea like what's the ongoing, I guess, concerns that people stutter, like are there any supports that people stutter with, within the global community that people would like to see implemented? And anything stands out?
People are looking at what people are interested in on our website. People are really interested in how stuttering impacts your job and your work life and getting a job. That's a big deal. Another thing we've found is people are really interested in the medical research. And we want to have more articles about that, about the latest research on different on research that could lead to new treatments.
Do you feel this is a $64,000 question here? Do you see any benefits to stuttering?
Yeah, I think it can make, well, it gives, I think in my case, gives a kind of a depth to my life in a way. It's a challenge that's been in front of me all my life, that I've had to work with and work and deal with, and it's made me more resilient in a way, and it's helped me to be appreciative of things I do have. Like when I got a new job recently, and that was, even though they all know how I talk, and so you're grateful when things work out.
Excellent. That's a nice positive side to stuttering. Thanks again for the taking your time to be a guest on Some Stutter Law podcast. We will have you back for sure. Okay.
Well, thank you, and thanks for inviting me.
Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about stuttering, has so much to talk about. Let's start listening.
This has been an episode of Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about stuttering. Some Stutter Law is hosted and produced by Greg O'Grady, Katelyn Mayo, Dr. Paul DeDecker, and Luca Dinu. Some Stutter Law is available on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. To ask us a question, send us a comment or a suggestion, or just to get in touch, find us online at Some Stutter Podcast on Instagram, or at Some Stutter Law Pod on Facebook. Thanks for listening.